Good morning everyone, and welcome to the next video in the cyber security space. In this video we're going to talk about the certified ethical hacking course. Now, why do we need ethical hackers, and what is the purpose? What is the thought process in having an ethical hacker on an organization's team is what we want to discuss in this course. Now look at this from a perspective. There is an organization, Facebook in this case. Any organization would do, who uses or which organization uses IT infrastructure. So they've got a data center, they've got servers, they've got computers, they've got networks, switches, routers, and so on and so forth, which they utilize on a regular basis to perform their business. Now, if these things are not configured correctly, or if there are any vulnerabilities or any design flaws, a hacker can misuse these vulnerabilities to hack that organization, which could result in a lot of financial losses, maybe loss of business, that is revenues falling down, customers not trusting that organization and going to a competitor, and loss of clients' confidence, loss of reputation, and a lot of penalties from a legal perspective if any of the confidential information gets compromised. So every organization proactively needs to look at the vulnerabilities that their infrastructure may have, and then they want to identify these vulnerabilities and identify security controls that can be implemented to secure these or plug these vulnerabilities to prevent malicious hackers from making misuse. So what do? They hire an ethical hacker. Ethical hacker is the person with highly intellectual knowledge about computers, where they are technologically adept. They know a lot about security. They know how computers work. They know operating systems. They know networking. They have the same skills of hackers, except the ethical word here means that these people would be using their knowledge for the good. That means they will identify these vulnerabilities, and instead of misusing them for personal gain, they will help the organization plug these vulnerabilities and help them be more secure. The ethical hacker basically has the same tools, has the same knowledge, except the intent is completely different, where the outcome of the exercise that they are doing results in the organization's security posture being increased rather than them getting compromised. So the ethical hacker will then test for vulnerabilities, identify all the vulnerabilities that may exist either on the network, the operating system, or the host or the server level, and based on that they will create report and submit it to the management of that organization, along with recommendations of how they can mitigate or minimize these vulnerabilities. The security department would then analyze the requirements, identify what is required to mitigate these vulnerabilities, and help the organization upgrade their security based on the details that the ethical hacker has given them. Now, for the ethical hacker to gain this knowledge of how vulnerability assessment should be done, how it should be reported, that is where the ethical hacking courses come into the picture. Once the organization is secure, it can relax and it can basically be assured to a certain extent that the threat that they had from hackers is minimized to a certain extent, and thus they are a little bit more secure than they used to be. This becomes a continual process, and as the company matures in its security, the level of security is going to increase over a period of time. Now, what are we going to talk about in this video? First and foremost, we are going to talk about an operating system called Kali Linux, which is used by penetration testers as well as hackers to do their penetration tests. So we're going to see where we can download this and how we can install Kali Linux. And then also we're going to look at some basic Linux commands that will help us navigate the operating system. Then we are going to discuss the different phases of ethical hacking, of how ethical hackers would target an organization to get the appropriate result. We are going to talk about basic terminologies that are utilized in these scenarios by ethical hackers or in the security world at large. We are going to look at some ethical hacking techniques and some tools which will help us achieve our objectives. And finally, we are going to talk about the areas of ethical hacking and certifications, which will help us get ourselves certified as an ethical hacker, and then get that knowledge from those trainings as well, and thus provide the services to any organization that requires them. Now let's talk about downloading and installing Kali Linux. Along with that, we'll also be looking at the basic commands that are required for Kali Linux. Alright, so I've opened my browser and we want to go to the Kali website. So we want to go to kali.org. You can directly type in kali.org and go to the website. I can just do a Google search and say Kali download, and it will give you the same website, but it will directly take you to the downloads pages. So either here or you can go to the home page. Cookies are being installed on your machine, so see which cookies you want to allow. I'm only going to use the necessary cookies. to support this site. And you can see that this gives you the latest Kali Linux news and tutorials, gives you the latest release, what is in that release, and gives you a lot of documentation which will help you understand what tools